Warning, this video is not intended for persons underneath the age of 13. Thank you.
Ho ho ho. Hey everybody, it's the Aries 1999 coming back at you today with a very special episode because we're going to be talking about putting the themes of Christmas into Dungeons and Dragons. First up, I'm going to say that I'm talking about the pop culture version of Christmas, not the traditional version. As great as it would be to make an adventure where the players are the wise men coming to bring the Christ child gifts, it just isn't what we're doing. Maybe next year. Now with that established, let's talk about the Jolly Man in Red. No, not that one. The other one. No, what? Where do we even get that photo? That's not even a shiny Snorlax. Santa Claus. I'm talking about Santa Claus. And that photo doesn't even show him in red. So, anyway, let's say you want to play Santa in D&D. What do? Well, I would say that Santa would be a dwarf. Because, he lives for a long time, he's a plump guy, and he's got that long beard. He could be an arcane trickster rogue, since, he sneaks around people's houses and he's inherently magical. He could have a candy cane looking rapier, and some throwing knives that look like Christmas trees, and a bag of holding that looks like the Santa bag. Maybe even at higher levels you can end up getting a flying reindeer mount. That'd be fun. Now, to talk about some other characters, there is a woman known as La Befana. She's kind of an Italian counterpart to Santa. She flies around on the Feast of the Epiphany delivering presents. In case you didn't know, Epiphany is the day that the three wise men came and gave Jesus gifts of coal, Frankenstein, and mithril. What? Oh. Silly me. Right, it was gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Sorry about that, a little confusion. If you wanted to play as her, perhaps you could become a conjuration wizard who has a broom of flying. Now to head east a little more, we have a man known as Dead Moroz from Eastern Europe. Now his backstory is that he used to kidnap children and now gives out presents as recompense. Sheesh. Eastern European fairy tales are dark. I mean, I know all fairy tales were pretty dark to begin with, but I don't know, that just seems kind of next level. Well, anyway, Dead Moroz was a sorcerer who walked around with a magic staff, so if you were to play him, I guess you could also be a sorcerer. He would have the criminal background, I suppose. And something else interesting about him is that he has a sidekick in the way of his niece, known as Snegorochka, the Snow Maiden. She could be some type of druid, I suppose. To go further east, in Japan, there is a figure known as Hoto Osho. Hoitio Osho, I'm very sorry, I must have butchered that name. HoteioSho. Anyway, he's from Japanese Buddhism, and he's known as a bringer of good fortune. He brings presents to children, and is kind of like a Japanese counterpart to Santa. He is a monk, so of course his class would be Paladin. Just kidding. For a subclass, I guess he could be Way of the Shadow Monk, because, these figures bring their presents quietly in the night. For some non-Santa characters, well, there's the little drummer boy. He could be a bard, who of course plays the drums. A worker elf would, of course, be an elf. For a class, they could be an artificer and the background of guild artisan. Perhaps Santa asked you to go on a quest with him, or maybe you decided that, toy making wasn't right for you, and you went off as a life of adventuring to perhaps make the money to go to dental school. Now, John McClane would almost certainly be a barbarian. He gets angrier and deadlier throughout the movie. And he doesn't wear armor. Quite the opposite, actually. He keeps getting more and more exposed, but he remains pretty much unkillable. After that, for some more miscellaneous type characters, you could have a tree ant that's specifically a Christmas tree. And you could have some various ice elementals. And you could also have some reindeer who have a flying speed. Now, for an actual quest, perhaps the party has to get together to save Christmas. Here's the setup. Santa's naughty and nice list has been stolen and it's hidden deep within some lair. The party has to travel through the tundra facing down wolves and snow golems along the way. And don't forget that exhaustion sets in faster when the players are in cold environments. Now, when they actually get to the lair, they find that it's full of Home Alone style death traps. In addition to that, a fun puzzle that would probably only work if you're playing on a grid as opposed to theater of the mind would be to make them navigate a room that's covered in ice, so they slip around once they step onto it. There would be some obstacles strewn throughout the room, and once they're on the ice, they slide until they collide with something, so they would have to navigate these obstacles carefully in order to exit the room. Something else you could do is send out groups of snowmen or enlarged toys to attack the players. You could have them be larger groups by giving them minion status. Minions are a feature that were more popular back in 4th edition, but it's something that should be in every DM's toolbox. It basically means that the creatures only have 1 hit point, but are otherwise identical to the monster that you're basing them off of. They are very useful for horde battles, since you can send so many people after the players at once. They make area of effect spells and multi-attack way more powerful, since any one hit will take down any monster. To balance this, if you have a player who does one really big attack per turn, such as a paladin, perhaps attacks over a certain damage threshold can, roll over and hit multiple targets, like a rapier piercing through 3 snowmen at once. Now, the party would have to navigate through 3 floors of doom like that, and each one would be headed by a different Christmas-themed villain. First up is the Grinch. Yes, really. The Grinch would probably be a Beastmaster Ranger with perhaps some rogue levels. His dog Max would be his familiar. He is, of course, proficient in deception.
But that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie and he thought it up quick.
And maybe he has some Christmas lights that he uses as a lasso. Now, to be true to the character, let the party try to talk him out of his evil ways and befriend him. Personally, I think that this is something that should always be an option when you're dealing with an intelligent creature, to fight with diplomacy instead of just with your swords, but it would be especially true in this case, considering, the Grinch turns around in the end. On the 2nd floor, there's the robotic Santa clone from Santa Claus 2. He wears a military uniform in the movie, so perhaps he could have the stats of a veteran, but instead of a humanoid, he would count as a construct. He could also be backed up by some nutcracker men, and they would all have the stats of a guard, but they would also be constructs. Lastly, the final boss of the dungeon, the one who's protecting the list to keep it from Santa, is Krampus, the Anti-Claus.
Steve, just be happy you're bad now and not when I was a boy. Back then, Krampus would have come for you.
Krampus?
Yes, Krampus, the demon of Christmas.
He would probably be some form of lich or demi-lich, and he could cast spells like, Snow Ice Storm, Chill Touch, and summon elemental, but he would probably specifically be summoning ice elementals. Well, that is all that I have for today. I really hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. If you want to check out some more stuff from me, I've got a lot of D&D videos, including one on the Wizard of Oz and another one on Xiaolin Showdown. I have a podcast called Enter the Dungeon, a brotherly Pudcast, and I have a Twitter that I might start posting to. Anyway, that's all I have. I hope you guys have a very Merry Christmas, and God bless.